We start with this developing story. The Lebombo Border Post has reopened after urgent talks between South Africa and Mozambique. The border had been closed due to election violence in Mozambique, causing major disruptions. Businesses on both sides suffered heavy losses during the closure. Here's SABC News reporter Nhlanhla Jele, who's on the ground watching the situation for us. So Nhlanhla, even though we are not immediately able to see the effects of this closure right now, it is said that they will start to show in the next couple of months or so. And so what's happening there at the partially opened border now?
Good morning to you, Mkolisi, and to the viewers at home. Indeed, we are not going to be able to see the effects of how this closure of the border has affected other industries, but we do know that businesses in the last couple of days where we saw the border being closed suffered huge losses, including long-distance taxis. But as you can see, Mkolisi, behind me, taxis are already here. Yesterday, soon after the border post was opened, just after 3 p.m. in the afternoon, taxis were already lining up because people just came from nowhere. It was as if they were waiting for the post, for the port of entry rather, to open. As you can see, people are making their way from South Africa to Mozambique. People are making their way from Mozambique to South Africa, as you can see. And earlier on, we showed you and the viewers at home that trucks have already started moving. We understand they started moving yesterday at night around 10 p.m. Some have already made their deliveries and they are back in South Africa, and of course are going to continue throughout the rest of the day. Whether or not this will continue into next week, we are not sure as yet. We are still awaiting information from the Border Management Authority as to how far their talks went. An official word in policy from the Border Management Authority as to how far their talks went. But just to remind the viewers at home, yesterday Dr. Mike Masiapato, BMA Commissioner, said that traveling is not open for people who wish to go to Mozambique for leisure. You know, policy holiday purposes. That is not allowed at the moment because we are not sure whether or not the protests have quietened down for real or for good, or if they're going to continue into the new week. But we do know that people who wish to go back home to Mozambique are allowed to come through to the Lebombo port of entry, and also people in South Africa who wish in policy to come back to South Africa have been given authority to pass through the Lebombo port of entry as it has been opened in policy.
And Nhlanhla, I can imagine that is somewhat of a logistical nightmare for people there, and this breeds frustration. What are some of the people saying there? What are you hearing?
You know, Mkolisi, one would think this would be a logistical nightmare, especially for the people. I'm sure for the trucks, that's what is happening because now it's a backlog. Remember, some of them, especially truck drivers, have been here since Tuesday waiting. So now you can imagine how long their processing is going to take. However, for the people who have been allowed now and again time to cross, you know, when the border was closed and then open again, officials have been here stationed waiting for the people to come back. Of course, the backlog is going to be troublesome, especially for the trucks. Remember, kilometer 4 in Mozambique has been burnt during the protest action that was taking place during the week last week. So that is going to be a problem for them. However, for the people, it seems like it's quite fast because if we move closer inside the immigration office in South Africa, it's quick. People are being processed quickly. The same in Mozambique. We saw yesterday, as soon as the port of entry was open, a couple of minutes in policy, it was already packed with people moving, cars. Police were already here, BMA officials were already here. So the only challenge at this point is for the trucks. But we understand that currently at kilometer 4 in Mozambique, they are cleaning up. They are trying to get their operations to work well again so that the processing can continue as quickly as it was before. And it's also important to highlight some of the people that you see here, we spoke to earlier on, they are saying because of the border keeps on opening and closing and the unrest back at home, they are making their plans to go back home for the festive, because we do know that around December the port of entry becomes busy, that they process a lot of people in a day. So now some people are just taking this opportunity while the port of entry is open at this moment in policy to somehow just make their way back home, just in case anything happens and the port of entry is closed again and they have to go back. Because on Thursday when we were here, people came here and had to turn back in policy because they got here at 5 only to find that the border gate is is closed. Obviously, they don't have any accommodation around here, so they have to go back to Joburg. Some are saying they are coming back and they're going to stay in Mozambique until things quieten down, and then they can come back to South Africa.
And Nhlanhla, just before I let you go, you speak of some of the people that are making their way home, from South Africa. What do they make of what's currently happening right now in Mozambique? What have you been hearing on that front?
Of course, even during the elections, when they were voting, in fact, from the day when they were voting, they've been saying that they are not happy with the political situation back at home. They are not happy with the governing party, Frelimo, saying that they've been in power for so long, but they're still struggling. Some say that they have to come to South Africa to try and make ends meet because things are so bad in Mozambique. People are unemployed, people are uneducated, so they are not happy. However, they are also not happy with the political unrest that is happening, these protest actions, because as you can imagine, almost 18 people have lost their lives already since the protesting has started. And of course, that is an unconfirmed number that we have currently, but we don't know if there's more people who have lost their lives during the fighting that has been taking place. Some of them yesterday have been calling for the protest action to end because innocent people in Mkolisi are getting hurt, innocent people are losing their lives, business people in Mozambique in Mkolisi are losing their lives. I mean, just on Thursday evening, others came here to try and renew their work visas, but they found the port of entry to be closed. They were also worried, saying this is affecting them, although they are not going back to Mozambique, because if the immigration office is closed, it means that they are suffering on this side because they face getting fines in South Africa for trying to work without having official documents. So they're obviously calling for the unrest to end, saying it's enough now. They feel it's time that Frelimo just gives up power and give it to people who they feel they voted for and are not currently in power in Mozambique. So they are calling for the strike to end, policy.
All right, Nhlanhla Jele, thank you so much for that update. That's our very own reporter, Nhlanhla Jele, on the pulse on that story, of course, at the Lebombo Border Post. Thanks very much indeed.